I know when we initially had our conversation, one of the first things that you asked me, you said, well, when you sit down to the negotiating table, what's your intention? And I said, well, I want it to be mutually beneficial. And you're like, well, in order for you to be able to know that it's going to be that, you also have to understand what their intentions are. So when we're talking about all wins, can you break down what all wins means? Because some people hear mutually beneficial, but there's a path that it requires to be able to get to something like that.
Right. So in the evolved or snuff negotiation framework, all win is an placement for what most people will think of as win-win.
Yes.
So we believe that win-win is a misnomer. It because of the fact that people come to the table and they have a set of wants or needs, and then they base the outcome on how well they meet or satisfy those wants and needs. Now, they don't think about the fact that whatever that outcome was may have been far greater or far less had they understood what the wants and needs of that other person are. So one of the key elements of snuff negotiation is that it's set on a continuum. So for most people, what calling win-win, that's really just a cooperative bilateral negotiation. It means we came to an agreement. But the idea that we both won is a misnomer, right? Now, the nirvana of relationship, whether personal or business, is all win. Why? Because all win is marriage. That means that the consequences and benefits of our relationship have become so intertwined that anything that impacts you impacts me equally.
Okay.
So it is only all win as long as that's true. So let's take an example of a partnership.
Hmm.
So if you and I are going to have an opportunity to enter into partnership. Now, let's say we both come up and we decide to come up and invest $100,000 each, and we have a 50-50 ownership in the business. The question I would ask is, are we equal partners?
That is a great question. I would say, in my experience, no, because there's other factors that I have to take into consideration. Percentage wise, yes. Work wise and responsibility, accountability, my experience may put different levels of pressure on me than the other person may have. So I don't have the expectations that I'm going to get me from other people. So I would say no, but that goes back to belief and perception.
It's also, we would tend to agree with you as well, but here's why.
Mm.
It's because from an evolved perspective, we would look at risk and consequences, always going to come back to that. So in other words, question would be, Sean, if I put in 100,000 and you put in 100,000, well, if the 100,000 that
That's
I put in is every nickel I have to my
right.
name, and the 100,000 you put in is a drop in the bucket in your net worth, we've never are in an equal position because you can walk away and it's a dip in your account, but it would destroy me. So at
Absolutely.
that point, when we start talking about who did more work and who did less work and what the return on investment is, you could simply turn around and say to me, is like, look, this is not working out the way I think it is. I think it's time to close the business. We were never equal partners because now I'm saying, wait, that's okay. Because if you walk away, and I lose everything, then in fact, I have 100% of the responsibility and you have 50% of the profit. So we were never, so again, there would be a perfect example of a win-win where you have partners coming together and say, we're putting in an equal amount. We both are going to share and split the responsibilities in this way.
Right.
And we both have a 50% in terms of all the decisions. 99.5 out of percent out of 100 of your listeners would say that's a perfect example of a win-win. No, it's not. No, it's not a win-win at all. all, because when it comes down to the consequences, you only determine whether or not you won in hindsight. That's another key element of the snuff framework. You don't look at an outcome and go, yeah, that was a win-win. You know why? Because in that moment, we haven't dealt with any issues. We only know that something is a win-win when we look back in hindsight, and or that when we come to a point fork in the road where we have a disagreement about something, and the consequences of that disagreement might be greater for me than for you. Well, do I use my power and say, well, I'm going to walk away if you're not going to do it? Or do I say, well, I could walk away, but my commitment to our agreement is such that I don't agree with you, but we agreed to have a 50-50 outcome. Now, I am now making a decision based upon my integrity of the agreement more so than my ability to walk away. Well, in real life, most entrepreneurs are not going to be interacting with people that have that type of integrity, and they're not going to find that out until there's an issue. It's very, and what does that come down to? Assumption. My assumption was
Yes.
presumption,
Yes.
and then what was on the legal document. Well, a legal document all day long can say, yeah, this is win-win, it's equal, it's blah 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 blah. And yet again, in certain states, you can have a 50-50 partnership, but if one partner defaults in a lot of states,
Mm.
the other partner can then be held responsible for 100% of that liability. So again, it was never a win-win. So in all win, which is rare, I describe that as a marriage in a community property state.
Understood.
Because anything that impacts you impacts me to the same degree that it impacts you. And as long as we have that balance, then anything that hurts me hurts you, and anything that you gain, I gain. Well, it's that integrity that keeps us in an all-win position. So the that is the most complex relationship in life, in business as well. Why? Because we can be joined together in 100% all win everything, and then over time I might learn something about
Right.
you that I did not previously know. Now the question is, do I use that, or do I use it as a way to take control or take advantage? And we know very well that is why we have hostile mergers every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why partnerships end up the greatest enemies ever, because along the way, during the due diligence, we thought we shared everything, but there's always something outside of that that may impact and change. So at any given moment, what was an all-win relationship can quickly devolve into either a highly cooperative or less cooperative
Mm.
relationship. Again, but that happens in hindsight, not in foresight. So the question is, how do we protect ourselves? Because we
Yes.
don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know if it's going to happen, but we don't know it's not going to happen.